As more people are taking so-called workations, where they take their work with them on the road and go to another country, I'm going to share with you some of the countries where remote work has been deemed to be the best and give you some of my own criteria today. One of the things that I'm noticing more and more is that folks who are coming to us at Nomad Capitalist are looking to get infrastructure in place. They want to get their bank accounts, their residence, their citizenship, and they're saying, hey, once the kids graduate from school in a year and a half, or once the business sells later this year, or once whatever happens, sometime in the next 6 to 24 months, they're going to make their move. And so we still have entrepreneurs who are like, dude, I'm paying like $1,000 a day in taxes, and every day counts. I need a place to go now. That's one school. But we're also seeing folks who are basically trying to set themselves up. And so I think workations, or taking scouting trips basically, is a good way if you have 6 to 24 months to basically get your infrastructure in place where you figure out what's the best citizenship that protects my interests as a backup. That's not necessarily a place that I'm going to live. What's a good residence permit I can have in my back pocket that I may or may not want to live in? Okay, we can do our best guess that you might want to live there, but let me have something as a place that I can go and live. Let me do my banking. Let me do all that. And so in that 6 to 24 months, you can go and do scouting and then come back and say, hey, let's get this residence permit because this is my favorite country to live. And so in that vein, I want to share a new report that talks about some of the best places to live in Europe, and then also talk about some of the best places to work and live remotely around the world. Now, if it's your first time here, my name is Andrew Henderson. I'm the founder of Nomad Capitalist. We're a boutique consulting firm that helps 7- and 8-figure entrepreneurs and investors legally go where you're treated best. Everything from reducing your taxes, having a second citizenship as a backup, investing overseas, basically taking control of your own life so that you're not owned by just one country, and you can learn more at nomadcapitalist.com. So, according to globetrender.com, they published some study from a group called Babbel, where basically they went and asked people, hey, in Europe, where would you like to go and take this workation? Basically, I'm living in the UK, for example, and I want to go and spend a month or 3 months or 6 months living and taking my job with me somewhere else. And so Italy came in first place, and then Spain and France and Switzerland, Greece, etc. This is pretty common. I've seen it in my own personal relationships where when someone's just getting started, they choose the name brands. And what I've done in my own personal life is show people, yeah, let's go to places that are off the beaten path because you can get better quality of life, potentially more affordably, certainly with lower taxes if that's a concern for you. More consumer conveniences, nicer people in places that you haven't heard about. I mean, there are parts of France that are very nice, but if you're going to follow the herd and go to Paris, especially if you're going there in the summer, it's going to be busy, it's going to be expensive, people are going to be a little grouchy, you're just not going to enjoy it as much, and I would much rather go and spend time in Malaysia with really nice people where they speak English and aren't going to give you crap for that. And if you want to live there long term, you can pay lower taxes. And so if you're looking to live the Nomad Capitalist lifestyle, my suggestion is you look at places to scout that would actually be good long-term places to live. Start turning your vacations into places that are scouting trips. So if you want more personal freedom, if you want lower taxes, if you want a lot of the stuff we talk about, France ain't it. Okay, now Switzerland was number 4 on the list. If you have a 7-figure or higher income, Switzerland potentially could work out for you. Italy has a tax incentive, so that could potentially work out for you. Greece has a tax incentive. The UK does if you can get in. Portugal has a tax incentive. So some of these countries are name brands. Portugal's becoming a name brand partially because of its tax incentives. And so, fine, go to those places. But I don't want you to go somewhere just because it's a name brand. I don't want you to follow just the herd. And so what Babbel did was they put 500 metrics together, such as internet speeds, cost of accommodation, coffee and beer prices, restaurants, crime rates, which for sure there are some name brand countries in Western Europe like Spain that just aren't as safe as people want to think they are, right? Especially for petty crime. And so they put this list together across 43 countries. And so they came up with an evaluation where Italy did indeed come out number 1. Now, I don't think they looked at taxes. Italy does have a number of tax incentives, whether you're retired, whether you're bringing your own freelance gig, or whether you are a highly successful entrepreneur, you just want to pay a lump sum tax of 100,000 euros. So Italy can be very tax friendly, at least for anywhere from 5 to 15 years. And no doubt it does relatively well in many metrics. I'm not convinced, having recently been there, that things like internet speed are that good. With all the strikes that are going on, it seems like life would be a little bit more difficult. But certainly there's a romance there, which I suppose makes up some of the score. What's surprising, though, is what the other countries on this list. This is 43 countries in Europe that are ranked on all the different quality of living metrics, except for, I think, tax. Romania came in number 2, which is kind of surprising. I would argue largely buoyed by the fact that they have some of the fastest internet in the world. They always have. And so I think that the quality of life, I mean, you've seen people who they moved there because it feels more free. Things are a bit more traditional. If that's what you're looking for. That can be a good thing. Citizenship may be a little bit harder to come by than, let's say, in a Portugal, but it's possible, certainly, if you're willing to live there. Taxes, if you're running a smaller business, can be relatively low. They just reduce their incentive, but you can pay as little as, a couple percentage points if you hire some people on a six-figure business. North Macedonia in the Balkans came in number 3, which kind of surprised me. Taxation there is relatively reasonable, but I think that running a business is one of those countries like, why would you set up your business there unless you want to do business locally? So as much as I've talked about Georgia over the years, I've really almost never recommended someone set up their business in Georgia unless it's just one piece of the structure because they're doing some part of their business in Georgia. North Macedonia is the same kind of thing where, sure, the taxes are reasonable, but I just don't see that the uniqueness of running a business there would be good. So I've been there, I've been to Skopje, and I don't really see how that would come in number 3 in Europe. So this is an example of where I love the technical indicators, but I also love going and doing scouting. Certainly everyone has a difference of opinion, and so I have a home in Serbia, I spend time in Montenegro. I think those are interesting places. I think Albania potentially has a lot of promise. Somebody may say, hey, I prefer Skopje and Tirana to Belgrade and Tivat, and that's fine. I don't see how, by any metric, Skopje would be number 3 in all of Europe, but if you wanted to check it out, you could. So there's the quantitative and there's the qualitative, and both have to match up, and obviously we were not all going to agree on that. Germany came in number 4. Again, I'm kind of surprised. Bosnia and Herzegovina came in 5th. Then France, Spain, Hungary, Portugal, and Bulgaria. So I have to say I don't really entirely understand this list. I think for a lot of folks who want a softer landing, Portugal could be a good place to go because you have widely spoken English. It is largely Western. The weather is good. You can take advantage of not a perfect tax exemption, but a decent tax exemption for many folks, whether you have a job that you're bringing, whether you have some freelance work, or whether you're starting your company. There are ways to get your taxes down, especially as an entrepreneur, down into the single digits. Bulgaria, there are people going there. That's not as soft of a landing. Hungary's all right. You see a lot of nomads there. Internet speeds are good. Taxes are all right, I suppose. So some of these countries do work, but quite frankly, I'm not sure that they should be in the top 10. What my criteria would be is, number one, you want to go where you feel comfortable and where people are nice. And so one place I've always found in Europe people are nice is in Ireland. If you are doing relatively well in business, you can get tax incentives there as a foreigner. Outside of Europe, I found places like Malaysia, Colombia, people are super nice. Indonesia, they'd be super nice. I want to go somewhere where it's nice. Once people started pointing out to me, oh, wow, people are really nice here, I started really paying attention to that. And so, yeah, if I'm going to choose nice people, I love Bulgarians. I love the Bulgarian people. But I have to say, on a day-to-day basis, the educated folks you're going to deal with, we work with Bulgarians, great. Going to a coffee shop, yeah, it's going to be more pleasant in Dublin or Kuala Lumpur or Bogota than it is in, in Sofia. It just is. And so certainly I like some of the directness, right? And so the challenge I have, despite how nice people are in Colombia, is it's too conversational for me. And so I certainly like a little bit of the directness you might find in Eastern Europe. You've got to make the decision for what's nice and where's the right balance. But that's one factor I would look at. Where do you feel comfortable? I have people who come to visit me in Bogota. They come to Kuala Lumpur. They say, "Wow, it's so green here." Again, in a lot of Eastern European cities, they don't have that. They've done a lot of development. Prices have gone up. People have paid money, but they've done so sometimes at the expense of parks. Not all of them, but some of them. And so, if you feel comfortable, if you like that environment, that's probably going to make you more productive, in my opinion. If you want to work from anywhere, you want to be surrounded by comfortable surroundings. If you like a big city, live in a big city. If you don't like a big city, don't live there. And so these are the kinds of things I would keep in mind. I would also think about where I fit in. I didn't see Austria on the list, and I wonder if part of that is because, even though it's not so much, it's not able to be measured, but everyone I know who's there, it's harder to make friends. People have also said that in parts of Italy, especially northern Italy, where it's just harder to make friends. So one thing I've said about Georgia, for example, which is not on this list, and certainly, I think Tbilisi is not quite as sparkling clean as it used to be by any means. But if you can make friends there, you make pretty genuine friends, you can make them relatively quickly. That's a benefit of a place. I don't need to have tons of friends. I have friends widely distributed around the world. In some places, I only have 1 or 2 friends that I'll spend a lot of time with in that particular place. But whether you want one friend or you need 21 friends in a given place, you want to find a place where you can make them, and that's hard to put in these surveys. And of course, I think you want to choose a place that has lower taxes, because if you're going to go through the hassle of moving and moving your business or moving your work overseas, why would you do so to make your finances more complicated? Take advantage of lowering your cost of living potentially, which you could do in certainly Bulgaria, North Macedonia, parts of Italy, parts of Portugal. You could do that, but you want to look at the social aspects as well. And so I think those are hard to assess, and that's why I tell people, if you're not looking to move right away, if you're looking to move right away, we have to take a stab, right? And so we'll ask you a whole bunch of questions if you're working with us, like, okay, where's the place that you're going to move? Is it one place? Is it two places? Is it three places? Let's get something going so you can move and lower your taxes. If you're building something for a longer game, 6 to 24 months plus out, then I'm going to tell you to take scouting trips and see, do you agree with me that Kuala Lumpur is more livable than Bangkok, or do you disagree with me? Because neither one is really strategically better. They both are tax friendly. They both have their own benefits. They both have immigration programs. You've got to go and check them about that and see how you feel. I'm warming up to Bangkok a little bit, but when I first spent a month there, I got out of the train station and I'm just like, it's not for me. And I felt that the whole month. To that point, another report from Study International, obviously speaking more to recent graduates. Chiang Mai, Thailand would be a tax-friendly place that ranked #1 on their list, speaking to street food, speaking to networking opportunities with up-and-coming digital nomads. They mentioned the Canary Islands. They mentioned New Zealand, which is hard to get into. Berlin, of course, which is harder to get into. Germany, if you're not a European citizen. Hanoi, Vietnam, possible to get into. Happen to like that better than Ho Chi Minh. Bali, Indonesia is rolling out a tax-free digital nomad visa, and then Reykjavik, Iceland, I think hard to get in if you're not European. So those are some of their suggestions. But the criteria, I think, if you know what your criteria is, to me, you've got to define what you're looking for. Obviously, we help people with this if you're working with Nomad Capitalist. But if you're trying to figure this out on your own, you want to figure out where you're going with this. If I'm trying to work remotely, what are my goals? Yes, you want day-to-day frustrations alleviated. Don't necessarily think that every country works the same way yours does. Sometimes they work better, sometimes they work worse. And so if you're coming from Australia with terrible internet speeds, yeah, probably anywhere is going to be an upgrade. Certain countries, you need to be concerned about that. Like, what's the internet speed? How does life work on a day-to-day basis? How do I rent a property? Like, ask yourself those questions. And then also ask yourself, like, what am I looking from a lifestyle perspective for this? Do I care about nice people? Do I care about service? Do I care about luxuries? Do I care about consumer conveniences? Do I care about, things being delivered to my house? If you're coming from a country where they have Amazon delivery and you're moving to North Macedonia, ain't no Amazon next day delivery in Skopje, all right? And so what are the things that you value? It's like going into a relationship. What am I looking for this relationship, right? Define that and you'll have success in the relationship. Don't define it and you'll constantly find yourself being let down. Lessons learned from someone who's been doing this for over a dozen years. And so I think that the social element, depending on how much you value that, is very important. And so those are some places that have been deemed in Europe as the best places to live, as well as best places to get started, and my considerations for where to go. But I'm a big believer in scouting trips. And if you were to spend 1 month with yourself, your spouse, your whole family, whoever's going, you will be able to figure out the best places for you if you have the time to do that.